A critical $2,000 dividend payment, one that was promised to millions of Americans, just had its timeline radically accelerated.
But there's a huge catch here.
A huge one. This good news arrived simultaneously tethered to a potential, well, a catastrophic cutoff.
Right.
President Trump pushed the payment closer than anyone expected, and he's citing massive tariff revenue as the reason why.
But at the exact same moment, leaps are coming out of the Treasury.
And these leaks suggest a hard six-figure income cap is now officially on the table.
So the fundamental question becomes,
Does this accelerated timeline guarantee you a payment, or have the rules suddenly tightened to exclude millions of middle-class households right before the holidays? We uncover the full story of this high-stakes collision between rapid policy execution and, frankly, profound nationwide confusion. Stay with us as we break this down in our in-depth discussion right here on News Focus Podcast. And if you find our reporting valuable, please hit the like button and subscribe to support our channel. We truly appreciate it. So the timing of this right now, this specific point in November of 2025, it's just not coincidental.
oh, not at all. Analysts are calling it, and I think it's the right word, explosive.
Explosive is right. We have two massive high-stakes financial developments that are just colliding.
And it's creating this systemic confusion across really every state in the country.
Especially among our senior population who are watching this very, very closely.
And we really have to look at this timing as intentional, not accidental.
What do you mean by that?
Well, we're watching a unique logistical moment where the scheduled normal administration of Social Security payments is hitting the same week
The exact same.
as a major high-profile policy acceleration from the White House. This overlap creates, well, it's a perfect storm of policy anxiety.
Okay, so let's break that down. Let's start with the logistical facts. The first thing that actually did go according to plan
Well, the one piece of stability here.
was the scheduled Social Security delivery. We know that the first wave of November checks, and this is for seniors born between the 1st and the 10th of the month, they landed on schedule.
On November 12th.
November 12th.
Yeah.
And that payment provided a small, brief moment of financial stability, a necessary respite from all the constant talk of government funding issues.
But that moment of stability was extremely fleeting.
It was over almost before it began.
Because immediately, and I mean, the second those scheduled payments cleared and hit bigger accounts for millions of those early recipients, that is precisely when the new accelerated timeline for the $2,000 tariff dividend just exploded into the national conversation.
So people aren't just confused because the payment moved closer. That would be simple enough.
No, they're confused because the rules for the new payment might be changing while the administration is processing the old one.
The ground is literally shifting under their feet.
Exactly.
I think that really is the central tension here. The narrative has always been, that the $2,000 dividend is coming eventually.
Eventually, yes. A future promise.
But the speed at which this acceleration occurred and the immediate administrative uncertainty it generated has everyone second-guessing their own financial standing. So what exactly was the specific announcement that kicked all this off?
The confirmation came directly from the highest levels. We've seen reports confirming that President Trump announced that key administrative steps have been accelerated.
Which effectively pushes the payment timeline sooner than anyone expected.
It moves it from a theoretical future promise to what could be an immediate relief measure.
And we can't forget why his word on this carries such specific weight. This isn't theoretical stimulus money being borrowed from somewhere.
No, that's a critical distinction. This $2,000 dividend is explicitly backed by the massive revenue stream generated from the tariffs imposed over the last several years.
The argument has always been the money is not only there, it's growing.
That's correct. And the established backing of a growing revenue stream gives this acceleration an immediate financial credibility. It's not just a political promise.
But this is where it gets complicated.
This is where we run into what analysts are calling the paradox of speed in policy.
The paradox of speed. Explain that.
Well, speed sounds great on paper, right? Especially to those who desperately need the relief.
Of course.
But a faster timeline generates widespread fear among analysts and recipients alike. When an administration bypasses the usual slow, methodical congressional vetting process,
Which can take months.
or years, it implies that new rules, new income caps, and new eligibility parameters could be deployed instantly.
Instantly, before the public, or even some elements of Congress, have time to debate or scrutinize the details.
Right. The goal is to hit the target fast, But the result is instability for the very people the relief is supposed to help.
And that instability was then amplified, exponentially, by the most critical factor in this entire story.
The bombshell.
The bombshell leaked from the Treasury.
And that bombshell is where the entire policy conversation just pivots, shifting from what looks like an exciting policy win
To what now feels like a terrifying financial cutoff, especially for middle-income households.
Exactly.
Reports are suggesting that Treasury Secretary Scott Bent introduced this profound doubt by hinting that an income cap threshold is now, quote, officially being considered.
And this wasn't just a rumor circulating on social media. This was a high-level official acknowledgement that they are actively debating excluding certain Americans.
The gravity of that really can't be overstated.
It can't, because for months, this $2,000 dividend was framed by the administration as a tariff return, a dividend for the American people because they bore the cost of those tariff increases.
The messaging implied universal, or at least near universal, inclusion.
That's right. So to introduce the possibility of a restrictive income threshold now, it just changes the core social contract of this policy.
And the number itself seemed designed to generate maximum anxiety. Reports suggest the potential cutoff is around $100,000 in household income.
Though nothing is finalized.
Nothing is finalized, but the mere circulation of that number, the first hard exclusion figure we've heard, is just profoundly damaging to the expectations of millions of people.
And that $100,000 mark is fascinating because it hits a very specific demographic.
It's not the super rich.
Not at all. In major metropolitan areas or for dual-income professional households, $100,000 is not wealth. It's stability. It's paying the mortgage and saving a little.
It completely contradicts the previous broad promise of most Americans.
It does. And we also need to, define our terms here for our listeners. When the Treasury talks about an income cap, what do they mean?
That's a great question.
Are they using adjusted gross income, the AGI from your tax return, which excludes many forms of retirement income? Or are they using total household income, which counts everything from pensions to rental income to 401k distributions?
And for many seniors, the difference between those two metrics could be everything.
It could be the difference between inclusion and exclusion, period.
Which leads directly to the analysis of this exclusion. The panic isn't among the wealthy. They weren't expecting it anyway.
No.
It's coming from millions who, until this moment, assumed automatic inclusion based on precedent.
We're talking about Social Security recipients, veterans, and households who have historically been the central recipients of any kind of relief payment.
They're suddenly caught in this gray zone.
And their financial stability might hinge on this one $2,000 payment. We have to consider the specific profiles of people caught by this proposed cap.
Give us an example.
Okay, take a retired couple. They might receive Social Security that keeps them well below the threshold, but maybe they have a 401k that they're drawing modest annual distributions from.
Which they were told to do their whole lives, save for retirement.
Exactly, or a small corporate pension plan. That combination, which is the definition of modest financial prudence, could easily push their household income over that $100,000 cap.
So the system would actually punish them for saving successfully.
It would. And politically, this income cap is creating significant internal friction. Our sources suggest that conservatives are deeply split on this.
Really? How so?
Well, you have the fiscal conservatives on one side arguing that a cap is necessary for budgetary discipline.
To make sure the relief is targeted and not wasteful.
Right. They see the $100,000 line as drawing a necessary boundary. But on the other side, you have the economic populists and the administration allies who frame this as a tariff return.
A dividend owed to everyone.
To everyone affected by the tariff costs. For them, capping it just negates the very principle upon which the policy was sold to the public.
And that political disagreement brings us back to the core eligibility question, especially for seniors. Historically, every single version of a federal dividend or stimulus payment, regardless of the amount, $600, $1,000, $2,000, it explicitly included the elderly and disabled.
Yes. SSI, SSDI, and standard Social Security recipients were always a given.
Let's quickly clarify those acronyms for everyone.
Of course. SSI is Supplemental Security Income, usually for very low income or disabled individuals. And SSDI is Social Security Disability Insurance. These groups have historically been guaranteed inclusion because their income is fixed and often minimal.
So the fundamental anxiety now is whether this new rushed income cap will override that historical precedence.
And carve out millions of elderly Americans who may be drawing higher than average benefits, combined with some modest retirement savings. It's a fundamental break from established policy norms.
And this anxiety is just being compounded by the already complex administrative realities of Social Security payouts this month.
Oh, the staggered payment schedule is creating a logistical maze that is amplifying the uncertainty for every single recipient.
It really is an administrative pressure point right now. Let's just quickly recap the calendar for those who are still waiting.
It's important.
We saw the first wave, the November 12th group, already paid. Those people have certainty on their scheduled benefits.
They do. But the remaining groups are in a state of, well, high alarm.
The next group is waiting for Tuesday, November 19th. These are recipients with birthdays between the 11th and the 20th.
They're waiting, hoping nothing changes in the rules between now and then.
In the final critical group, those with birthdays from the 21st through the 31st, they get their benefit on Tuesday, November 26th.
The day before Thanksgiving.
The day before Thanksgiving. That timing is more than just inconvenient, it's critical.
It's everything. Families are preparing for the high costs of Thanksgiving, the start of the holiday shopping season.
Economic pressure is spiking.
And all the while, they are monitoring Washington anxiously. The dividend acceleration, coupled with this income cap threat, is spiking the anxiety for these waiting groups to an almost intolerable level.
Just think about the internal monologue of these recipients. As they wait for their specific payment date, they're wondering, will the Treasury move to implement this income cap before my scheduled November 19th or 26th benefit arrives?
Will my eligibility window suddenly close? Not based on my income today, but based on a last-minute policy decision in D.C. that I have absolutely no control over.
And if the standard Social Security payments are confusing enough, the SSI and SSDI recipients were thrown into utter chaos this month.
Yes, due to an administrative anomaly.
Explain that.
The SSI timing disruption was a massive system failure in terms of communication. The November funds for SSI recipients were paid early. They landed on October 31st.
And we have to stress, this was not a policy change.
Not at all. It was purely a logistical rule. If the first of the month falls on a weekend or a holiday, the payment is made on the preceding business day. Simple as that.
But the administrative fallout from that simple logistical shift
Caused widespread panic at the Social Security Administration, the SSA.
absolute chaos.
Total chaos. The early deposit completely violated established expectations. Many seniors who are used to rigid payment schedules didn't even recognize the early deposit.
They just assumed their money was lost.
Or frozen or delayed due to potential government funding issues. SSA phone lines were jammed for days, with recipients mistakenly reporting missing payments that had actually arrived early.
The system was completely overwhelmed.
Right. And now, linking this chaos back to the $2,000 dividend, SSI recipients are terrified.
Why? What's the fear?
They're terrified that this odd timing receiving their deposit on October 31st might negatively affect their eligibility or their priority status for the tariff dividend.
And is that a rational fear?
It's absolutely rational, because the system, especially when it's processing rapid emergency-style payments, relies on the cleanest, most recent data snapshot it has.
Okay.
So if the SSA database shows their November payment was processed back in October, their record might appear out of cycle when the Treasury runs its batch payment system for the dividend.
They worry they'll be filtered out by an automated system.
A system that's designed for speed over nuance. The SSA systems were never designed for this level of rapid, politically driven policy pivot. They're fundamentally designed for slow, consistent, bureaucratic delivery.
Which brings us back to that November 12th group, the first wave of standard Social Security recipients.
The test group.
Analysts are calling them the test group. Why is this initial cohort so critical to the entire dividend rollout?
They're the pathfinder. That first wave recipients born between the 1st and the 10th, they've already received their checks.
Their accounts are cleared.
Right. Their financial status is now fully verified and updated in the Social Security system. For the purpose of rapid administrative action, they represent the cleanest, most current, and most logistically secure data set the government possesses right now.
So the belief among analysts is that if the dividend is fast-tracked, this group will become the earliest eligible recipients.
Essentially serving as a template for the accelerated payout.
But how would the Treasury even handle verification if they used this group as a model? What would that look like?
Well, that's the key speculative piece right now. If the administration wants speed, they really have two main routes they can take.
Okay.
They could rely on the 2024 tax filings for income verification. That's slower, it's less current, but it's the standard way of doing things.
Any other option?
Or if they're prioritizing the elderly for inclusion and speed, they could simply use current SSA data to verify existence and address and then send the money immediately.
Which would be much faster.
Much faster. And if they choose that latter route, the November 12th group, whose SSA data is fully verified post-payment, is their easiest starting point. It allows them to demonstrate progress and alleviate political pressure without waiting for Congress to debate the finer points of that income cap.
The logistics here are so complex, but the entire proposal rests on a simple, powerful engine.
The tariff revenue.
Exactly. Let's explore the why behind this $2,000 dividend. What is the financial mechanism funding this, according to the administration?
The funding is entirely dependent on President Trump's central argument that tariffs, which are basically taxes imposed on imported goods, primarily from China, are bringing in substantial revenue.
We're talking multi-trillion-dollar revenue.
That's the claim. The policy framing is that this revenue collected at the border is strengthening the dollar, providing the U.S. with resources to pay down the national debt, and fueling domestic growth.
And they cite evidence for that, right? Things like factories booming, investments pouring into American manufacturing sectors.
Precisely. We need to dive into the specific economic claims they're making. If you look at the source material, the administration isn't being vague about the impact. They point to tariffs on specific manufactured goods, electronics, steel.
As high-yield codes.
Exactly. They are claiming a direct correlation between this border revenue intake and the ability to fund domestic programs without increasing the national debt burden through traditional borrowing.
So things like high tariffs on specific finished electronics or automotive parts have generated surprisingly large, predictable revenue streams.
That's the argument. And that this revenue, they say, is not just theoretical, it's cash in hand, ready to be redistributed.
Which, if the revenue engine is so powerful, it brings us back to the central question millions of people are asking right now.
Why hasn't the check gone out yet?
Exactly. If the money is real and the revenue is flowing, why the delay?
And that is the ultimate political pressure point. The fact that the money is theoretically available suggests the roadblock is not financial.
It's governmental.
It's governmental. Is the bureaucracy, the vast machinery of the Treasury, and the SSA struggling to execute this fast enough? Or, and this is more likely, is there significant political or establishment resistance within Congress that's delaying the final authorization, even if the executive branch holds the purse strings?
Let's trace the evolution of this proposed stimulus, because the increasing amount itself is direct evidence that supports the administration's claims about rising tariff revenue.
It absolutely tells a story about the financial drivers behind this. We've watched this proposal climb rapidly in size.
It started much smaller.
Much smaller. Back in July, the initial discussion, primarily led by Senator Josh Hawley, floated a modest $600 tariff rebate.
Then by August,
President Trump raised the possibility to a much more substantial range, from $1,000 to $2,000.
And now, here in November, seeing updated tariff revenue numbers, which are reportedly higher and coming in faster than expected, he has locked in on at least $2,000.
For most Americans.
For most Americans, with that crucial asterisk now.
The pattern is undeniable, and it's crucial for listeners to grasp. The payout keeps increasing because, as the administration claims, the tariff revenues are climbing faster than predicted.
So this suggests the financial intake is the primary driver behind this new accelerated timeline shift.
This is not political whim. This is a direct financial consequence of high revenue intake.
And you drew an interesting conceptual parallel to this strategy before we started.
Yes, the concept parallels the structure of the proposed Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, strategy.
And we should clarify, because that term has a specific association now.
Yes. In this policy context, DOGE was the conceptual idea of paying Americans a percentage of the money saved through governmental efficiencies. As the percentage of savings increased, the payout to Americans would increase proportionally.
So Trump appears to be implementing that same linkage here.
He is, but he's replacing savings with tariff revenue. Higher tariff revenue translates directly into a higher payout. It politically links the executive's financial policy directly to a tangible payout for citizens.
But even with this major financial engine pushing everything forward, we still crash into the brick wall.
The congressional roadblock.
The congressional roadblock. Explain what must legally happen, regardless of administrative acceleration, before a single dollar of that $2,000 can be sent out.
The legal reality is rigid. Even with the White House accelerating policy steps, a new bill must be drafted, passed in the House, passed in the Senate, and then signed by the president.
That is the legislative process. It cannot be bypassed for a measure of this size.
And Washington rarely, if ever, operates at the accelerated pace the White House is now demanding.
Especially not heading into the end of the year.
Exactly. While the Republican leadership is mostly aligned, the establishment forces, which include fiscal conservatives wary of large payouts, and critically, the opposition Democrats, they have ample procedural power to stall or kill the bill.
What kind of tools can they use?
They can use legislative tools like procedural holds in the Senate, demanding unanimous consent that is very unlikely to be granted. They can drag out committee review in powerful bodies like the Senate Finance Committee or the House Ways and Means Committee.
And these tactics can easily delay the timeline for weeks.
Or even deep into the new year, pushing it past the holidays entirely.
So if the process is designed to be slow, what exactly is driving this sudden demand for speed right now in mid-November?
We see 4 key driving factors that are all colliding at the same time.
Okay, what's the first one?
First, as we discussed, the financial reality. Tariff revenue is demonstrably coming in faster and higher than anticipated. That gives the president crucial political and financial leverage to argue for an early dividend.
Okay, what's second?
Second, and this is a major factor, the constituency pressure is immense. Seniors who received their November 12th payments, our test group, are now flooding congressional offices demanding concrete clarity on their eligibility and the timeline.
That constituent pressure turns a policy debate into an urgent political reality for members of Congress.
It absolutely does. Third, the critical timing. We are headed straight into the holiday season.
Right.
The financial pressure spikes dramatically for American families weeks before Thanksgiving. Delivering relief now would land at the exact moment Americans are feeling the pinch of holiday expenses and inflation.
It maximizes the policy's impact and, of course, the political benefit.
And the fourth factor is the internal dynamic between the key players.
The White House and the Treasury.
The mixed signals between Treasury Secretary Scott Bent, with his income cap hints, and the White House, with its push for speed, suggest significant internal debates are happening.
This tension suggests a race to finalize the rollout.
It suggests a race to finalize the $2,000 rollout quickly before opposition forces, both internal and external, can solidify and potentially block the payment entirely. The speed is a defensive maneuver as much as it is an offensive push.
This internal policy friction brings us right back to the part of the story generating the most fear.
The income cap.
The Treasury Secretary's comments pointing toward a possible income cutoff near $100,000 in household income. We have to elaborate on the devastating impact of that figure.
That figure, even as an unfinalized proposal, is the single greatest source of public anxiety because it replaces certainty with doubt.
Millions of Americans, Social Security recipients, veterans, even middle-class workers with high costs of living assumed they were automatically included.
And they are now facing a sudden, terrifying possibility of exclusion.
And we have to consider the nuances of what household income actually means to these recipients.
Right.
Will retired couples with modest savings be excluded simply because they pulled out $10,000 from a tax-deferred retirement account? Will a part-time worker or a widow with a small pension get caught in that gray zone?
The ambiguity is the weapon here. There is no official, locked-in number, and the vacuum of clarity is what's fueling the panic.
So if the Treasury uses the broader definition of household income,
that $100,000 will net a large number of seniors who are living comfortably but certainly not luxuriously, especially those reliant on drawing down assets.
the administration promised the payment to most Americans.
But the inclusion of the cap instantly limits the scope, potentially redefining most, in a highly restrictive way that fundamentally excludes the upper middle class and the financially prudent elderly.
That uncertainty is creating a genuine public crisis across the country.
It is.
We are seeing social media demands just exploding, and Washington's response is only making it worse.
By speaking in what you can only describe as riddles.
Exactly. The reaction is visceral. We have reports of congressional offices being deluged.
Seniors are emailing nonstop, desperate for confirmation. Disability recipients, SSI, SSDI, are terrified that the administrative timing confusion means they will be unjustly flagged for exclusion.
And veterans who view this as a constitutional duty are reportedly furious that an income cap is even being discussed in relation to a dividend meant to offset the costs of trade policy they supported.
And the official response from Washington officials is merely providing these vague half-statements that only exacerbate the national confusion.
They seem unwilling or maybe unable to commit to a firm answer on the cap.
Which raises a deeper analytical question about the dividend itself, doesn't it?
It forces us to look beyond the policy.
We have to ask, is this $2,000 dividend truly a genuine rescue package aimed at long-term economic relief, or is it merely a political pressure valve?
Is it designed to calm a system already under strain from a slowing economy, pre-holiday financial pressure, and congressional delays that have prevented other forms of fiscal action?
The timing strongly suggests it serves both purposes. It's acting as an immediate anesthetic to a growing financial headache.
Regardless of the dividend's final status, whether it passes, is capped, or stalls, seniors and recipients must monitor 4 critical red flags right now.
Let's provide listeners with some actionable advice. What are the key areas they must pay attention to immediately?
These are the 4 financial points every recipient needs to track now, regardless of the dividend status. First,
delayed Social Security checks. If you are in the November 19th or November 26th group and your check does not arrive on the scheduled day, you must report that delay immediately.
why is that so important right now?
Delays right now could throw your verification status into question later, especially if the dividend rollout uses the most recent clean payment data to verify your status.
Okay. Second, we need to shift focus to healthcare costs, which are guaranteed to change soon.
Yes. Focus on Medicare premiums. We are approaching the end of the year, which means premium adjustments and deductions will shift starting January 1st.
Those changes will impact your net monthly benefit.
Correct. Recipients need to proactively seek information on their updated premium structure so they can budget for the new year independently of this highly speculative dividend payment.
Third, the often forgotten CLA delay.
Which means current financial tightness isn't going anywhere soon.
Explain that.
The cost of living adjustment, or COLA increase that has been announced, still won't kick in until January 2026.
So many families are currently operating on last year's benefits while paying this year's inflated prices.
They are feeling the financial squeeze now throughout the critical holiday season, which only elevates the political urgency for the $2,000 payment.
And finally, a factor that could turn a relief payment into a financial liability next year.
Tax implications. This is crucial. If this dividend is structured by Congress as a non-taxable rebate, that's great.
But if it's structured as a taxable stimulus payment, or, worst case, a refundable tax credit that affects other benefits,
the tax implications could vary wildly depending on the final legislative language. Recipients cannot ignore the potential for an unexpected tax burden next year, forcing them to pay back a percentage of what they receive.
so they have to save any official correspondence about the payment structure.
They must.
This volatility defines the critical window we are in right now. The $2,000 dividend is backed by real revenue, and the commitment from the White House to deliver is real.
But the legislative payout is not yet secure.
That is the necessary conclusion here.
Legislative gaps remain wide open. The income cap is unresolved, fueling massive uncertainty for millions who thought they were safe.
And while the White House pushes for historic speed, the internal signals between the Treasury and the rest of the administration suggest they are not perfectly aligned on the critical rollout details.
No, not at all.
The next 7 to 14 days will dictate the entire trajectory of this payment.
It will determine whether Congress manages to accelerate this unprecedented relief or whether internal establishment friction and the opposition manage to stall it for weeks.
Leaving millions hanging through the high-pressure holiday season.
And we really must emphasize that your only defense against this administrative and political chaos is staying informed.
That's the bottom line.
We encourage our listeners to remember that verifying your documentation, checking payment schedules, and actively monitoring policy changes is the only way to protect your financial security in this volatile period.
A complex story indeed, driven by real financial opportunity but shrouded in urgent, high-stakes uncertainty. Thank you for your incredibly detailed insights.
Thank you.
If Congress ultimately successfully stalls or kills this immediate financial relief, what precedent does that set? What leverage does the executive branch truly possess to alleviate sudden economic pressure points in the future if a proven revenue source and political will aren't enough to move the administrative machinery? Something significant to consider as we watch the political gears turn. That's all for this deep dive on News Focus podcast. We'll see you next time.